So, in the tech world, having a revolutionary idea is actually the easiest part of the job.
Oh, without a doubt.
Right. I mean, the graveyard of Silicon Valley is just absolutely filled with brilliant products that literally nobody wanted to buy.
It's crowded in there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is explicitly clear. We are basically mapping out the exact survival guide that a new venture needs to, stay out of that graveyard.
Which is incredibly important.
Right. And this audio experience is designed to completely replace your Unit 4 textbook for the IT entrepreneurship and innovation syllabus, specifically the part on developing the new venture.
Yep. Throwing the textbook out.
We are taking all the concepts, the frameworks, and those real-world applications, and we're breaking them down so you, the listener, can seamlessly apply them to ace your exam and actually build a real business.
Because knowledge is really only valuable when it's understood and applied. I mean, looking at technology entrepreneurship today, it's just vital to recognize that successful founders, they don't just, hatch fully formed, flawless business plans overnight.
Right. It's not like in the movies.
No, not at all. It is a relentless, iterative process. You just have to remain flexible and constantly adapt to what the market actually demands rather than, well, what you simply want to build.
Yeah, because starting a venture just stretches your capabilities to the absolute limit. You're dealing with volatile markets, limited capital, and, let's be honest, the constant fear of failure.
Oh yeah, the fear is very real.
It is. And a major trap for tech entrepreneurs is getting so obsessed with like the elegance of their code or the cool factor of their hardware that they just forget to check if there's actually a paying customer on the other side.
Which happens way more often than you'd think.
So to make this concrete for you today, we're going to use a hypothetical startup throughout this deep dive. Let's call it Camp 3D.
Okay, Camp 3D, I like it.
Yeah, so they're a brand new venture focused on printing custom, on-demand, incredibly durable 3D camping gear.
Nice. So, okay, let's unpack
Oh,
this.
they do.
Before Camp 3D can even plug in their first industrial printer, they really have to know exactly who they are building this for. I mean, you cannot build a product in a vacuum.
Right, right.
A venture is defined as a new business activity that involves the potential for return, but also a significant amount of risk. But, the range of possible ventures is limitless. So to channel your resources effectively, you have to choose a specific market quadrant.
And there are three main ones, right?
Exactly. In the enterprise landscape, this usually breaks down into B2B, B2C, and B2G.
Okay, so let's start with the one most of us intuitively understand, which is B2C, or business to consumer, mostly because we just live in it every day.
Right. We are the consumers.
Oh. Yeah. It's driven by this, insatiable human desire for products that are functional or fashionable or entertaining. And for Camp 3D, this feels like the default starting point, right? They are offering functional, adventurous shelter products directly to campers.
Exactly. But surviving in BDC with just a single product is notoriously difficult because consumer tastes can literally change overnight.
Oh, absolutely. Which is why many tech ventures eventually pivot to B2B, business to business, because the underlying economics there are just vastly different.
Vastly different. Businesses generally have deeper pockets than everyday consumers, but their purchasing logic is ruthless. They don't care about whimsical designs.
No, not at all.
If you enter the B2B quadrant, there are really only three ways your venture can create value. You either help that company make more money, you help them save money, or you help them comply with government regulations.
So make money, save money, or comply.
That's it. Think about Amazon, for instance. Most people know their consumer-facing retail side.
Sure, yeah, buying paper towels and stuff.
Right. But Amazon Web Services, AWS, their B2B cloud infrastructure division, is just an absolute powerhouse. It often completely outshines their consumer side in terms of profit dynamics
Oh, wow.
because it allows other companies to drastically cut their IT and server costs.
So they are saving companies money. That fits the model perfectly. But then there is the third quadrant, B2G, business to government. And I actually have to push back hard on this one for a new venture.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, the mechanics of B2G involve navigating endless bureaucratic red tape, really strict profit rules, and a bidding process where you usually have to be the lowest cost bid. I mean, the sources mention massive prime contractors like Lockheed Martin building weaponry for hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
Isn't a B2G quadrant just impossible for a tiny, scrappy startup like Camp 3D? They'd drown in paperwork?
Well, the bureaucracy is intimidating, absolutely.
Yeah.
Understanding the structure of government contracting reveals some pretty massive backdoors for new ventures. The key distinction you have to understand is between prime contractors and subcontractors.
Okay, what's the difference?
So massive agencies often require those giant prime contractors to allocate significant portions of their awards to smaller subcontractors. Furthermore, government contracts have these things called set-asides.
Set-asides.
Yeah, they are legally mandated portions of the budget reserved exclusively for firms that are minority-owned, female-owned, or veteran-owned. So the barrier to entry isn't necessarily your size, it's just your operational knowledge of the rules.
Oh, wow. Okay, so B2G actually is a viable sandbox if you know how to play the game.
Exactly. And if you're looking at this from an examiner's perspective, this is a huge exam tip right here. They love testing the structural differences between these quadrants.
So like a practice question.
Yeah, let's do a practice question. So if our hypothetical startup, Camp3D, decides to sell its 3D printing tech to the military for emergency disaster shelters, which venture quadrant are they entering and what bidding process must they use?
Okay, so that would definitely be B2G, business to government. And for the bidding process, that's driven by an RFP, right? A request for proposal.
Spot on. You also have to be crystal clear on those 3 B2B value drivers we talked about earlier. Make money, save money, comply. That's a highly common exam topic.
Got it. Okay, so now that Camp 3D knows it's targeting, let's say, the B2C quadrant for now, how do they actually formulate the perfect product? A venture needs a structured way to find an idea that people will actually pay for.
Right, which brings us to the idea generation process. Step 1 of that process is identifying a point of pain. You do not start with a solution, you start with a headache.
Find the headache, I like that.
And to locate that headache systematically, you map out what the sources call the consumption chain.
The consumption chain, which is basically like an obstacle course, right?
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
It's like, as a founder, I'm basically watching my customer run an obstacle course. It tracks all the steps from awareness, searching, selection, figuring out financing, paying, using, right down to disposal. And the second they trip over a hurdle, say the storing stage, that's exactly where I build my product to catch them.
Yes, exactly. So take Camp 3D. Where does the traditional camping industry fail its customers? Perhaps it's in those exact stages, storing and transporting.
Yeah, traditional tents are super heavy and take up half your garage.
Right. So Camp 3D identifies this friction and intervenes. They offer an on-demand, lightweight printed shelter that you just recycle when the season ends. Any single step in that chain can be the foundation of a new enterprise.
Okay, so once that pain point is isolated, we hit step 2, which is innovating a product or service. And this seems to be an art and a science based on the text.
It absolutely is. What's fascinating here is how the expert entrepreneurs in the source material balance technology and the arts to maintain their creative edge. The triggers for innovation are really all over the map.
Yeah, the sources gave some really cool examples, like Brian Spanley, who founded Trunk Club. His advice was just to attack practical problems.
Right, the men's clothing issue.
Yeah, he realized men's clothing stores just weren't helping guys find their unique style. It was a clear customer service failure in the selection phase of that consumption chain we just talked about, so he innovated a personal stylist matching system.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, you look at someone like Ben Baldwin, the co-founder of Clearfit. His advice is to let your subconscious do the work.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Well, he actually came up with his HR tech idea while driving 80 miles an hour down a highway. It proves you sometimes need to step away from the daily grind so your brain can synthesize patterns.
That's wild. And then there's Kevin Colleran's advice, which was just think big, go big, or go home. Pursue ventures that improve millions of lives.
Exactly. So from an exam standpoint, examiners want to know you understand this sequence. So practice question number 2.
Hit me.
According to the 4-step idea generation process, what is the very first step an entrepreneur should take, and what model can help them map the customer's journey?
Okay, so the very first step is to identify a point of pain. And the model you use to map that journey is the consumption chain.
Perfect. Identifying the sequence and definition of the consumption chain is absolutely critical for your revision.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a target quadrant and a product designed for a specific pain point. But an idea without revenue is just a hobby, right?
A very expensive hobby, yeah.
Yeah. So step 3 is testing business models. How does this venture actually make money?
A business model is simply the economic engine of your venture. It dictates how you capture the value you are creating. And the syllabus details a myriad of models.
Like pay-as-you-go, which is just standard retail. You buy a product, you own it.
Right. But then you have models native to software like Freemium. You offer a base product for free, and charge for enhanced features, like Dropbox.
Oh, yeah, Dropbox is the classic example of freemium.
Then you have billable hours used by consultants or software developers. You have the advertising-based model like Facebook, where you aggregate users just to sell targeted ads.
And subscription pricing, right, like the Wall Street Journal or Netflix?
Exactly. And it is also critical to understand the structural difference between a distributor and a broker.
Okay, yeah, let's break that down.
A distributor, like Apria Healthcare in the text, buys products from manufacturers, holds inventory, and acts as a reseller. They take on the risk. A broker, however, like eBay, just facilitates a transaction between a buyer and a seller. They take a percentage, but they carry zero inventory risk.
Right, eBay doesn't own the stuff you buy in there. Here's where it gets really interesting for Camp 3D, though. They could just be a standard retailer. But what if they used a subscription model?
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Right. Campers pay, say, $20 a month, and they get unlimited replacement tent stakes and carabiners printed and shipped to them. It changes the entire business from a one-off sale to a recurring revenue stream.
It absolutely does. And the syllabus explicitly states that business models evolve exactly like that as you learn about your customers. The tool you use to map that evolution and discover how to deliver value is called the Business Model Canvas.
So for the exam, matching a specific real-world companies to their exact business model terminology is a really high-yield topic.
It is. So practice question 3. If a new technology venture offers a basic version of its software for free, but charges for advanced features, which business model is it utilizing, and which real-world company from the text exemplifies this?
That would be the freemium model, and the textbook example is Dropbox.
Spot on. Okay, so we've engineered the product and the revenue engine. Now we face launching and gaining competitive advantage, because the first few sales are the hardest to get.
Yeah, how do we actually launch and beat the competition?
You need a roadmap, which is your business plan. And this contains your business-level strategy, how you compete in an industry, and your functional-level strategy, which is the nitty-gritty marketing, HR, and finance stuff.
And when you enter the market, the text suggests focusing on the aspects of the new product or service, like stressing the unique technology features to get a head start and initial public awareness.
Right, but awareness isn't enough. You need a competitive advantage, the factor that makes customers pick you over others, and ideally a sustainable competitive advantage.
Right, which requires resources that fit the VRN framework. Valuable, rare, inimitable, and non-substitutable.
Exactly. And just to loop in some context here, there are two views on this. The resource-based view, or RBV, focuses on owning static assets. But the dynamic capabilities view, or DCV, argues that in tech, your capabilities must continuously adapt because the environment changes so fast.
Okay, that makes sense. And to figure out where you stand against rivals, you use a perceptual map, right? A 2D graphical depiction of how customers perceive products, usually comparing price versus some measure of features or performance.
Yeah.
But wait, what does this all mean for Camp 3D? If we build the absolute best, most indestructible 3D printed tent in the world, but customers perceive it as flimsy because it's printed, does our reality even matter?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the syllabus strictly states that a true competitive position is defined by customers and how they perceive the market, not by the entrepreneur.
So reality doesn't matter. Perception is everything.
Exactly. Differentiation only exists if the customer values it. If they think it's flimsy, you are positioned poorly, no matter how strong the plastic actually is.
Wow. Okay. So practice question 4. What is a perceptual map, and what two dimensions are most commonly used on its axis to plot competitors?
A perceptual map is a graphical depiction of competitive positions based on customer perceptions. And the two most common dimensions are price and features, or performance.
Perfect. And defining those 4 traits of sustainable competitive advantage, the VRN framework, is a guaranteed exam question too.
Absolutely. So let's move into the final phase, strategic planning and continuous operations. You've launched, you're on the perceptual map, you have an advantage.
But the sources are very clear. Existing competitors will not just sit idly by and watch you take their market share. You have to manage the venture long term.
Right. And that requires strategic planning. It's an endless loop of assessing the environment, establishing a mission, setting goals, and setting operating strategies. You have to ask, what do we want the future to be, and what must we do now to ensure it?
And the starting point for that strategic change is a SWOT analysis, right?
Yes. And distinguishing between the internal and external factors is crucial. Strengths and weaknesses are internal to your startup. Opportunities and threats are external factors in the broader market.
Got it. And to actually execute your strategy, you use the value chain. which is all the activities an organization undertakes to create value. To win, you must perform these activities more efficiently to reduce costs, or in a unique way to command premium prices.
Right. But even with a great value chain, managing uncertainty is key. Flexibility is the most vital trait for startup survival, and of course, performance measurement.
Yeah, because you have to track performance to know where you are doing well and where you need to improve. You can't manage what you don't measure.
So, practice question 5. According to the strategic planning frameworks, if a firm wants to command a premium price or reduce costs compared to rivals, which specific chain of activities must it optimize?
That would be the value chain.
Exactly.
I just love tying this all back to Camp 3D. I can just visualize the founders constantly running SWOT analyses, tweaking their value chain, and just remaining super flexible when a larger competitor tries to copy their 3D printing tech.
That's exactly how it works in the
Right.
real world.
So to summarize our journey today, we covered understanding your venture types, right? B2B, B2C, B2G. We walked through the 4-step idea generation process using the consumption chain.
We chose a business model.
Yep. Tested business models like freemium and subscription. We launched with a VRIN competitive advantage. And finally, we discussed managing long-term strategy with SWOT and the value chain. If you've been following along, you are now fully prepared to absolutely ace Unit 4.
You really are. But, this raises an important question for you to mull over as you study.
Oh, what's that?
The syllabus stresses that first movers often face substantial risks and costs. You have to educate the market, make the early mistakes, and sometimes those who wait for the hype to burst can actually build more viable models.
Oh, that's a really good point.
So look at the apps on your phone right now. How many of them were actually the very first to do what they do versus the ones who simply learned from the first movers' painful mistakes and just executed better?
That is fascinating. The fast followers sometimes win the race. I highly encourage you, the listener, to take that critical thinking into your exam and, of course, into your future ventures. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
Best of luck on the exam.
We'll catch you next time.